Okay, so Ralph, right, bro. While I've just finished my sadhana and my awareness is heightened a little bit still, my mind was unlocking stuff as usual while I was doing sadhana. It was, I think I can intuitively feel the boundaries, the mental boundaries that I've put on myself, aka standards, beliefs, rules that basically just limit the flow of energy because the point of sadhana is to raise your energy. So when I can feel those limitations, I think my mind starts to try think its way through them, which requires a very unidentified mind. Because, for example, if you're identified with being a man, then all limitations of being a man are going to influence your way of thinking. So it's not going to let you think as a pure human being. It's just going to make you think as a man, right? So I'm trying to just almost just channel my higher self while talking about this, not put any speaking limitations on it that come from me trying to perform around other people, because I see those. So yeah, one thing I realized that is making me very that was making me very angry at my ex for just having a sexual past. It was like it just felt like such a trap, made me so angry because like I wanted her, but it made me angry that that is there, right? And I've tried to look at it from a billion different angles about why that annoys me so much in terms of why she's annoying me, but I just had a moment where I just turned it onto myself. Like, and I noticed that I'm only bothered by what she does because I am judging and evaluating myself first. If I didn't give a shit, if I had no evaluation or beliefs about myself, like as if I didn't care, I didn't think of myself in any way, evaluate myself in any way, think of myself as bad or good or right or wrong or anything like that. If I completely didn't do that at all, I simply wouldn't care about who she is. I wouldn't do the same thing to her, if that makes sense. I would just, if I was, I guess if I was just, I would just have to go by my present experience. If I was enjoying how she was in front of me right now, I would be with her, I guess. Or again, because this is the hard thing that I think my brain's been really struggling with, and like, I don't know, maybe I have mild autism, as in like, as I understand it, autistic people struggle to understand these social rules. But I think that's because the social rules aren't real. They're just all made up. None of them are based in any sense of reality, if that makes sense. Okay, maybe they might be to some extent, as in actions have consequences. That is probably there. But like, as far as your brain and beliefs are concerned, your brain doesn't really understand that. Let's be honest. Like, the child in you, the child brain that you had, the innocent mind that you came into this world with, it doesn't really compute that at all. It's just like, it just believes whatever you tell it. It's innocent. It literally is innocent. If in that sense, there is no conditioning. It's just innocent, right? And I think that's intensely valuable. That's funny, I just said that. That's in itself a evaluation. Lol. Um, so let me try to stop. Let me just drop that quick. yeah, it just is what it is. And that's just fine. It's kind of funny actually. It just is what it is. Why so much drama? But yeah, anyway, like as soon as I stop that, all of it stops. The hatred and whatever stops. But I can see my goals of finding a wife and a woman and committed partnership, that's all ideas. If that so it's all the same game. So the fact that if I'm trying to look for a wife, I'm going to pick up those standards and those rules. I'm going to evaluate her, you know? At least that's how I was thinking about it. I suppose you don't need to carry that judgmental definition when you think of a wife. I suppose a wife can just be someone you're with right now. As in all you're concerned with is how it is right now. And always just stay focused on what is happening with your partner or wife right now and how it is between you right now, your energy dynamic, the emotional situations, whatever you're feeling, stay with that right now. And that's your relationship. I think if that's what your relationship is, it will be whatever it is. It's not good or bad. That's what I mean. You can't prejudge it, you can't prejudice it, you can't calculate, oh, if I find a woman with this like kind of lifestyle, this kind of personality, XYZ, then I will have XYZ, like a literal mathematical calculation. If X, then Y will happen. Like, you just can't do that. You just have what you have now. And then if right now things are falling apart, in that moment you have a choice to respond to that. If you choose the response you feel is right in that moment, again, not intellectually, that feels honest, then it falls apart. I guess it's finished and it's done now. But again, that doesn't mean it's done forever type thing. It just means in the next moment it's done. And then in the next moment it might be on again, or it might be off and stay off, and it might start you might start with someone else, you know. It's chaotic, and I think that's why people use morality, values and ideas to live, because I guess it's a bit crazy and hard. I've read about old humans, tribes, who the way they lived, they were just small tribes of like 20 people type thing, maximum 150, but pretty small tribes. They would just forage, never stay in the same place day to day. They wouldn't even think of the future because all they were thinking about was what's happening today. That and to survive today, they would have to pay so much attention because they were walking through forests they would have to like be able to decipher, oh, is this mushroom poisonous? Oh, but this one's safe to eat. They would have to be able to decipher that through pure attention because they didn't have books, they didn't have memory, they didn't have some great culture to support them. They just had to pay tremendous attention or they might die, you know? So they didn't really think of time. They didn't really think of what's going to happen in 3 days because there wasn't much point, because it was kind of hard to predict and they would need to pay so much attention right now. And that's how they lived. And then they would get their food. It would take 4 or 5 hours, maybe max, to go get some food, to go hunt, to go get some berries, mushrooms, nuts, water. They would come back to the tribe. They would just sit around a fire, maybe. They would eat. They would socialize in their weird languages. They would talk, spend time. They would play with each other, play with the children. Men and women would have sex with each other, with one woman the one day, one woman the next day, and then the women would have sex with one man one day, one man another day. They might get pregnant, they might not, they might have a kid, they might not. Then when some member of the tribe is getting old and weak, they might just leave that person behind. They might kill that person. They might do anything. If it's going to affect the tribe today, if it's dragging the tribe behind today, they'll just deal with it and move on. They would see it the same way as we would see someone who's on life support. It's like, well, what's the point of this? Finish it. And again, by conventional judgments, that's so primitive and crazy, all of that stuff that I said, like, so crazy and primitive. But I think a big part of that label of calling it primitive is just fear, modern fear. We evolved. We went from the middle or near the bottom of the food chain, jumped up right to the top through using the mind. We didn't, other animals like lions and tigers slowly got there. So they kind of gathered this sense of confidence and ease in themselves as they rose the ranks, but we just jumped there. We went from being prey to becoming a predator in a very short period of time. So we still carry so much fear, and that fear is keeping us like that because we don't know how to deal with it still. So labeling all that stuff as primitive, the way it feels to me is labeling the wildness, the unpredictability, the risk, the craziness is dangerous, scary, it's unpredictable. So then you label it as bad and primitive because you don't want to be in that situation. Your limbic system is like, no, I don't like it, because we've grown up, everything provided, everything. Even poor people live like kings compared to ancient times. You know what I mean? A poor person still goes to Walmart, or in England, they still go to Lidl. They can buy any food that they want, even if they're poor. Like in England, you can buy like a pack of chicken legs for £2. You know what I mean? Like, and that's relatively expensive. You can go buy cheap, shitty rice or like crackers and, again, food that's going to keep you alive for like pennies. On average, it takes, in 1 hour of work, you can make in England £11. I think in America $15. With 1 hour of just stacking shelves or doing some easy thing, you can eat for like 2-3 days if you're smart, you know? Even if you just went to In-N-Out and spent the whole $15 on a meal, like, that keeps you alive for a whole day. 1 hour of effort keeps you alive for a whole day. That's so easy. So easy. And again, not to mention the shelter, not to mention heating, electricity, running water that you can drink whenever you want, water that you use to clean yourself whenever you want. Again, I mean, for some people struggle with all of that, but like, the option is there, you know, the option to just be a single man or single woman, go work 9 hours a day, 5-6 days a week, and be able to afford all of the stuff that I just said is there for every single human being. Now, some people have kids and some people have this and that because I guess they were just going with their primitive instincts and they didn't really calculate any of this stuff. And that's the trouble, but it's what it is. Anyways, So just dropping all of it for 1 second just lets me breathe. I just don't, it just frees me from the anger, hatred, and judgment, which are all rooted in fear, you know? So I have two choices: drop the bag or change the judgments. And like, it's a difficult one with her because my judgments weren't taken up from some parent or something. They were taken from a lot of reading, a lot of careful thought about what makes sense and what doesn't. And I guess I got to keep my judgments loose and flexible because I don't know everything. The way I read things comes from my current level of restriction. So, as in the way I interpret information comes from my current beliefs and limitations to some extent. So read the knowledge, but I guess keep it flexible, you know. If I had experienced maybe a more open sexual life, and like I said, experienced what that does to my emotional system, my physical system, my joy, my sense of consciousness. If I had experienced that and it had left me in a state of more openness, more trustingness, more connectedness with the human beings around me through love and intimacy, if that was my experience, I would judge it as a positive thing. If I had gone through it in more of a dark way, if I had just used some women for their bodies, if I felt performative the whole time, if I had fallen in love and become attached to multiple girls at the same time, I would think it's a bad thing that lowers my quality of life and makes me less conscious and brings more suffering into my existence. So everything's just contextual and XYZ. So I guess that initial state I mentioned of dropping the judgment, I think that's truth. I think you go back to seeing the universe as a blank piece of paper, you know. But when you take on a judgment, that becomes your lens. That becomes the filter through which you see the world, the blank piece of paper that is the world. If you put on red glasses, the blank piece of paper becomes red. If you put on green glasses, it becomes green. It becomes red, bad, green, good. Whatever lens you hold, that's what you see it as, and that's how you experience it. You create your own dream, you know. So either you can not create any dream and sit with truth. You know, the yogis say if you do that, you burst into cosmic ecstasies and XYZ. I'm sure it's not enough to just drop a couple little small judgments. I'm sure you have to really wipe, or not wipe, but drop everything you know as yourself for a time to let something else arise. But if you're gonna make dreams up, make nice dreams. Stop making horror movies, you know. Make a comedy, make a romance, like, at least make it nice. Make it a joyful one, I guess.